Imagine the night of February 2026. Fire suddenly begins raining down over Tehran. American and Israeli missiles hit the capital with full force. The streets quickly fill with smoke and panic. In the chaos, news breaks that Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei has been killed in the strikes. A country that had quietly built up its nuclear ambitions for decades was suddenly struck directly at the heart of its most heavily fortified infrastructure. This night marks the culmination of an enmity dating back decades, a regional explosion that is currently destabilizing the global order. To understand how we got here, we have to look back to 1979. Before the Islamic Revolution, Iran, the US, and Israel were close allies. Then, the Shah's government falls. Ayatollah Khamenei takes power, and the entire ideology of the state flips. Embassy staff are taken hostage. The United States is branded the Great Satan, and Israel the Little Satan, setting the stage for a strict anti-West doctrine. This map shows how Iran secured its regional influence. They built the Axis of Resistance, a network of powerful proxy militias radiating out to Lebanon through Hezbollah, Yemen through the Houthis, and Gaza with Hamas. Fast forward to the modern era, and diplomacy completely breaks down. The Trump administration cancels the 2015 nuclear agreement in 2018. By 2025, Iran aggressively ramps up its uranium enrichment. Iran's pursuit of nuclear capability directly challenged Israel's stated red lines for survival. When diplomatic enrichment thresholds were crossed in early 2026, the strategic calculation shifted from containment to direct military intervention. At 9:45 a.m. on February 28, President Trump gives the order for Operation Epic Fury. Over 900 coordinated strikes hammer Iran's nuclear sites, missile factories, and air defense systems. Iran retaliates instantly. They launch hundreds of drones and missiles directly at Israel, American military bases in the region, and neighboring Gulf countries. The Axis of Resistance wakes up. Hezbollah unleashes a barrage of rockets from Lebanon, and the Houthis launch severe strikes from the Red Sea. Any lingering hope for a diplomatic off-ramp vanished in a matter of hours. The Middle East was fully locked into a brutal multi-front war of attrition. By March, the physical toll on Iran is staggering. The military loses 150 naval vessels, and 85% of the nation's defense industry is reduced to rubble. Yet, Tehran refuses to surrender. The United Nations holds emergency meetings, but the international community is paralyzed. No resolutions pass. Global superpowers fracture, with China and Russia throwing their political support behind Iran. Finally, in early April, Pakistan manages to negotiate a 2-week ceasefire. Both sides immediately declare victory, while publicly vowing future revenge. The pause in the fighting is incredibly fragile. The core issue remains completely unresolved. Iran insists on retaining its nuclear capabilities, and Israel refuses to allow a nuclear Iran to exist. While the missiles paused, the economic devastation was just beginning. In retaliation for the strikes, Iran completely shuts down the Strait of Hormuz, cutting off a massive artery of global energy. This graph shows the blockade's immediate damage. Crude oil prices spike vertically, crossing $120 per barrel. Zooming out, a global map highlights supply lines flowing to India. India relies on the Gulf for 60% of its crude oil and natural gas. A targeted military strike thousands of miles away instantly choked off the energy lifelines of developing nations across the globe. Back in India, everyday life becomes a struggle. Prices at local petrol stations surge. LPG cooking cylinders become unaffordable, forcing the government to drastically slash fuel taxes and take on massive subsidy debts. The human cost cuts even deeper. With 9 million Indian citizens working in the Gulf, mass repatriations begin. Families are split apart, and the Indian economy abruptly loses $50 billion in annual remittances. This flowchart tracks how a simple gas shortage cascades through an entire economy. The lack of fuel leads straight to missing fertilizers and massive agricultural losses, while desperate industries are forced to burn highly polluting substitute fuels. So, who was right? Iran funded terror proxies and hid its nuclear ambitions. Israel and America dropped bombs that killed innocent civilians. Both sides committed grave wrongs, but the developing world is left paying the highest price. The lesson for India and heavily dependent nations is clear. They must secure alternative energy sources and build renewable grids immediately. Because the world is watching, holding its breath, waiting to see if this ceasefire brings peace, or if it is just a brief pause before the skies catch fire again.